Howdy, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to work on the Maker's Challenge project. Now I have an idea, and if it goes through, then we'll go with it. But it kind of came to me last minute, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of fun. Let's try this. Be a little bit of everything. It's not really a useful item that I could use here in the shop, but it's more of a artsy creative idea. I was going to make a pendant initially. I was going to take some Moldavite, some Libyan desert glass, and a Colombian Tektite, cut them, polish them, mush them all together, make like one pendant, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. The Moldavite in itself is very expensive, and I'm like, I can't do it. I can't bring myself to do it yet. Yet is the key word there. Gosh, there was another idea I was going to do too. I was just going to polish some fire obsidian, but I did that last year, so I figured I need to switch it up a bit. So today, we're going to do something entirely different. Let me show you. Materials needed for the Maker's Challenge. This is a chunk of Willamette granite, and we're going to cut this up. And then the other ingredient is this large quartz point. And it's gonna pay me to cut this up, but we're gonna cut this up anyway. I'm gonna leave the point alone. I like the point because they're all natural facets towards the top, so they're all natural. And it's got a little window right there, so we're gonna leave the tip alone. But I am gonna slab this up. We're gonna start with this end here. We're gonna cut this end off. I'm gonna get a couple cuts out of the bottom, and then leave the rest alone. That way I can still have a nice little tippity top. So let's get this chucked up in the saw, and after this cuts, then we're gonna chuck this up. We're gonna try to anyway. It's kind of a weird top there. Then we're gonna cut this in half, and then we will go from there. So let's get cutting. Alright, most of the cutting is done. We have our quartz slice here. That is the natural shape of the quartz point. It was a pretty good sized point. Sacrifices are made. And then we have our Willamette Valley granite right here. So what we're going to do is, we're basically going to make an artsy nightlight. And what we're going to do is this. We're going to take this side, because I'm not sure if I want to sand down this side. The back side, this one's already been cut. I kind of want to leave some part of the natural stone there. But what we're going to do is we're going to use this to stencil out and trace out our work area. We do have a fracture right here. That's not going to really matter too much. And then, so we're going to grind this out a little bit and then find our center and kind of drill out a hole right here, depending on how big I want it. It may not be super big because this is about the size we're working, and it's going to be a little bit smaller than this. But basically what's going to happen is we're going to grind everything out. We're going to sandwich this in here, glue it together, cut off the excess, and then grind everything down so it's flush with the quartz slice, and then kind of blend everything together. And then we should have a really kind of cool looking nightlight. So it doesn't look like much right now, but it's going to undergo a serious transformation. Alright, now we got that stenciled out. I want to come back through here with the marker again and kind of create a barrier of where not to go past. Because again, it's going to get ground down a little bit. So I need to have like a decent work area to kind of stay within. So let's go ahead and do that. So here I was using a diamond cutting disc with the Fordham to cut out the center of the stone, or like make slats, and then use a hammer and chisel, or hammer and screwdriver,
to knock out those slats, and I was trying to make a hole in the center of the stone. But then I realized that was going to take way too long, and I just did not have the time for it, so I had to go to the next step. And then I used a different bit to drill a hole through all the way through the stone. And this is where I realized that what my initial plan was not going to work. So I had to go to Home Depot. So did a little drive to Home Depot, went inside. It was actually not that bad of a day for driving. And then keep driving. Oh, walked up to Home Depot, went inside. I got my bits that I need for this project, and oh man, there's a huge pile right next to my truck. That's okay, but I was wearing my sandals, so oh well. Never hurts. You only live once, right? Splash, 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 splash. And yeah, now I can drill a hole into the stone, and save me a lot of time. Because initially I was gonna use that Fordham with a diamond drill bit and drill the hole through there, and then carefully grind out a big circle by hand. And I'm like, nah, we're not doing that. So this core drill saved me so much time. But yeah, the first pass on the core drill did kind of slip where I wanted it to go, so I had to readjust and try again.
Voila! A hoary rock.
The next step was to take the diamond wheel and knock down the high spot on the granite on the edges. That way I have a nice smooth surface all the way around. And then after that, I took it to the expander wheel for the 100 grit and sanded down all the possible other high marks. That way when I glue it to the quartz slab, it will be relatively flush. And because you don't want any high spots when you're gluing stuff. And then shortly after that, I went through and I took the diamond wheel and got rid of the high spot on the quartz piece that I was going to be working. And after that, did the same thing as the other one. I went to the 100 grit expando wheel to sand that down, got rid of all the saw marks. And I actually had sanded this thing multiple times with this machine and the calving machine, but I ultimately came back and just finished it with the 100 grit on this belt and called it good. Now I did have to go back and drill a secondary hole in the other piece of granite, and I just paired them both up with the first piece. That way I get a nice uniform hole through both pieces that would both line up, and that's what I was doing here. And then I took my diamond bits for the Fordham and I created a bevel edge on both slabs on both sides. That way kind of give the stone some texture rather than just have a plain hole through both slabs. So this part was actually very messy, but it turned out very nice, and it kind of gave it some character.
All right, we are at the end of the first session of this project. So it's actually, I started April 12th. It's actually just past midnight, so it's time to stop for the night. So initially I was just going to drill the top half and then leave the rest alone. But I decided to go ahead and drill both sides through and through. I had to go buy a drill bit for this, as you can tell from my little skip to Home Depot. So we have a holy rock, and I'm not done yet. I got some more things I want to do to this. I'm gonna have like little textures here on both sides. I don't know why I did it. I just thought it'd be cool. I'm probably not going to bother too much with this. I just at least want to sand it down a little bit more. It's not like it's going to matter. No one's really going to see it. It's more of just a weird texture, I guess. But anyway, so here's the thing. I'm not going to get a full polish on this. I'm actually having issues. I ended on a 1200 grit with this. And there's still some really small scratches I'm hoping to get out. But at the same time, I'm not going to worry about it too much because who's really going to know? I mean, besides all of you. So here is what we're trying to do. So this is going to get cut down a considerable amount. So the idea is to glue these all together. And again, the scratches are going to matter because I'm going to probably have to resand it anyway.
not the best light for this, but it's gonna have to. Okay, we're not gonna use that light. Okay, so we're gonna use this other flashlight instead. So the idea is once it sits on a little LED platform, it will glow from the inside. Here I'm using my 280 grit Nova point to help smooth out the surface after using the diamond grinding wheel. This helps smooth out the edges and get rid of all the diamond grinding marks from the previous stage, and just makes it look nice. This is the next step of the process. This is a 2-part epoxy. I made sure to mix it up really well, and then once it's mixed up, I apply it to the outside edges of the quartz piece, making sure not to put too much on there because I don't want to have anything else bleed to the center of the slab. And then once it's been applied to the stone, I attach the quartz piece to the granite, make sure there's no air bubbles around the side, and also to make sure that it is actually firmly and attached to the granite slab. So this was a waiting part of the process. So I'd apply it to that stone, wait for the 2-part epoxy to cure just enough so I can apply the other stone. I could not glue them both together immediately because what will happen if I do that, things will slide, things will move around. So I have to wait for one side to cure enough so I can go back through and then put the glue on the other side of the stone and then attach the other side of the granite slab. And even with this, I had to sit there and make sure to hold the slab in place so it would not slide from that quartz piece. And this was a very delicate process, and it takes a lot of waiting and a lot of patience, but it turned out really, really nice and went on there fairly evenly. So I had to wait for the 2-part epoxy to cure before going on to this stage. This is the following day. I had to cut off the excess granite from the piece just to get things as close as I possibly could to the quartz without being too close. There's only one spot where I nicked it, but otherwise it turned out okay, despite the fact that the cuts did not line up with the quartz piece in the center, because I was trying to have things at least be kind of uniform, but it still worked out in the end. The saw did take forever since it wasn't the normal saw that I use for heavy duty cutting. After the cutting was done, I took it to the grinding wheel to round off and smooth out the edges all the way around to give it a better look and a better feel. And then after this stage, I took it to the 100 grit expando wheel to further get rid of the grinding marks and to further smooth it out before going on to the next stage. The next step was using the 280 grit Nova wheel to get rid of the previous scratches from the previous stage. And then I also used a 280 grit Nova point to do the same thing for the inside to help blend things and smooth things out before taking over to the 600 grit wheel. And this kind of helps things look much smoother for the end product. And here you see the 600 grit wheel being used. Again, that gets rid of the previous scratches from the previous stage. And I did the same thing with the Nova point. I had a 600 grit Nova point and further smoothed out all the scratches and stages from the previous wheels. And then we go to the 1200 grit wheel and did the same thing as the previous 2 steps to further get rid of all the previous scratches from the previous stages. And I also used the Diamond Pacific Nova Point 1200 grit to do the same thing. It's just a rinse and repeat through all the different stages. The Maker's Challenge project is finally done. I can show you the finished product, and here it is. This is it. This is the big top secret thing that I've been working on. This little thing of imperfection is almost perfection. To me anyways. And we'll go over here in the light box to show it off a little bit more, but this is what it is. But there's more to it. So let's go ahead and look at this a little bit closer. Alright, closer look. So what we have here is a chunk of laminate granite that was cut in half, and then I used that core drill to drill out the middle. It was a lot easier than what I had initially planned on doing. And the initial plan was to actually have this all flush with the quartz that's in the center of it, and then round it all down. Basically have a fancy looking donut. And then during this process, I was cutting this down, but none of the cuts lined up because I was working at a weird angle. And I figured, okay, this is going to just take too long to grind everything down to be flush. And I just said, you know what? I'm just going to do this as a abstract piece of work. So here we have an abstract
Nothing lined up, nothing perfect. Piece of work. And on the inside, we kind of have it kind of a donut. There's some nice space in there. And even the quartz in here is not fully polished. I believe with the inside quartz, I stopped at the worn 100 grit sanding belt on the expando wheel. Because I must have sanded that quartz at least 8 or 9 times before I gave up on it. And so I left it. And trust me, when I show you why I left it, you'll understand. And then here on the outside surface, this is the rough texture of the Willamette granite. Of course, we have a little bit of sanding here. I stopped at the 1200 grit sanding stage for all of this sanding. I didn't go anything past that, so this is all 1200 grit sanding stage. And I decided to have this side be more smooth than the other side. So there's a lot really going on with this piece, but I'll show you why I did this way. So let's go ahead and get a light right here. Put this right there. We're going to go ahead and turn off this light above it. Oh, there we go. And we're going to turn on this light. So now we have a nightlight. It's a little rock nightlight. So if you look at it, like, so much thought went into this. Even with like the rounded edges here, or the edges, I was gonna have everything be flush, but I decided against it last minute for a few reasons. For one, time, I didn't really have the time for it, but for two, I thought about it, and if you really if you back up and look at it, let's zoom in a little bit more. There we go. It's not as bright, so because like that is actually pretty bright right there. But if you look at an angle, like it has like a lighter, like subtle glow around the edge. Rather opposed to if I were to have everything be flush, that'd be super bright. So it's kind of like a subtle glow on the edge. And then flip it around. It just looks cool. And just, yeah. Again, the sanding job's not perfect, but it doesn't matter because it has a lot of imperfections inside the quartz crystal itself. And those imperfections actually help show off that light. Helps it glow. But let me know what you think. Oh, cool. Like, I even have some rainbows. That's so cool. That was my Maker's Challenge project. Thank you so much, Theo, for this opportunity to do the 2023 Maker's Challenge. I really hope this inspires a lot of people to go out there and make something their own. Just keep in mind that art does not have to be perfect. Not for you anyway. Just make what you think works. And be sure to go check out all the other content creators that participated in the Maker's Challenge for 2023 and go check out what they made. But I do want to hear what you thought about my project right here, and leave that comment in the section down below. But that is going to do it for today. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Rock on.